Okay, in all seriousness though, the first thing that I learned when I got into pro brewing was that I didn't actually know how to take a gravity sample. It kind of shocked me. There were like so many things like that. But anyhow, today I'm going to show you. So, the first thing is what you witnessed. That was obviously a carbonated beverage, but the principle is the same. Through fermentation, CO2 comes out of solution, some stays in solution. And when you're taking gravity samples throughout your fermentation, that CO2 can actually alter the reading that you have, especially if you've got a narrow scale hydrometer, to where just pushing it up a little bit can be the difference between almost a few points Plato or specific gravity. So a couple of things that you need to do. Let's get into them. Okay, so the first step is determine how accurate is your hydrometer. The easiest way to do this is to take preferably distilled water at whatever temperature your hydrometer is calibrated to. Most of them on the bottom will have a temperature. It's usually around 20 C or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So take a sample at 68 degrees, plop in your hydrometer, and see where it reads. It should read 0 right below the meniscus here. And if it does, and your temperature is correct, then that's perfect. Your hydrometer is calibrated, and you know that the readings that you're going to take on your beer are going to be pretty accurate. If not, and you're confident that your temperature is accurate, you need to record that number and just note that for any samples you take, you'll either need to add a point or subtract a point, depending on where yours falls. The next step, how do we actually stop the hydrometer from rising? Well, we need to degas the sample. During fermentation, obviously CO2 is generated. Some of that CO2 stays in the solution, and that pushes your hydrometer reading up. So what could be at final gravity, or pretty close, might be reading pretty far off. So to do that, what you'll need is 2 containers. I've got 2 measuring cups here at 1,000 milliliters. They work really well. And then depending on the size of your hydrometer and the size of your hydrometer sample vessel, you'll need anywhere between 100 and 250 milliliters. I actually get a little bit more in my measuring cup just because I know I'm going to spill a little bit. So what you basically do is just take your 2 cups and you pour them back and forth. But before I do that, because I know it's going to be a disastrously foamy mess, I actually have a little bit of firm cap. This is a defoamer. It works really well in the boil, actually, to prevent boilovers. But it helps here as well, and what I just do is just take a drop, put it in there, and it keeps it from getting overly foamy. So, to properly degas our beer here, what we'll need to do is pour it back and forth at least 60 times. I think the ASBC Association Brewing Chemists actually recommends a little bit more, but I've found 60 times to be pretty successful for my readings. So, here we go. So now that we've successfully degassed our sample, you can see that the reading was very different from where we started. And yes, obviously that was fully carbonated, but still we're a full point Plato off. So right now it's reading about 3.4 Plato, which is about 1013 specific gravity. So the more accurate you can get it, the better reading you're going to be able to take, and the better you're going to be able to be a good steward of your beer. And so what do I mean by that? Well, don't let your homebrew sit for like 2 weeks just because someone said so. Let it sit for as long as it needs to, and let the beer actually tell you what that is. You can do that by taking gravity samples every couple of days. If you have a fermenter with a spigot, this obviously makes it a lot easier than just a standard carboy. But yeah, let your beer tell you when it's done. Let it tell you when it's at final gravity. Let it tell you when it's done cleaning up all of the diacetyl. And let it tell you when it's ready for packaging. You can do this through, like I said, both taking gravity readings. I talked a little about pH, my Instagram account, but also sensory is really big as well. But now that you know how to take an actual gravity reading, you're one step closer to being a more legitimate prover. Cheers, guys.